All right, everybody, welcome back. This is we're going to start week 4 here, and I have some good news. I said last week that I split this up as not to overwhelm you with a lot of information, but as I look through, the 2.6 that we hadn't done yet, I've already covered most of it, and kind of in passing. Um, so I am going to go over it again, real super quick. But there are a couple things, a lab that I want you to that we're going to go over, and I'll explain the assignments this week. A couple more screenshots. You want to take the part 2 test. Make sure to know the difference between the test and the quiz. I covered that in another video. And these are the first assignments you're going to submit after having done them in PyCharm. So I'll go over one of them, and we'll just make sure you know what's expected. So if we jump in here and we just go to the end of 2.6, basically the summary is how to print stuff. And I covered that last week. I did what I didn't cover was input, and I'll do that in just a second. But all the prints are concatenated, or I use that word, and they finally say it in this spot here. We'll cover a few things. Let's just jump into that. The input function, which is very important. So we're writing programs that people are going to use, right? So most of the time you're going to have to accept information from the user, do something to it, and then show them the output. So it's all about interaction with a user. So close up here. Input. Input. Good Lord. The input function allows you to accept information from a user. So if I do input, enter a number, and I run this, you can see that the program starts here, and it tells the user, enter a number. They can put a number in, hit enter. Well, it doesn't do anything else just yet. So, what's the formula for an area? Is it a squared, b squared? Another thing, this is not a math class, thank goodness, because I'm terrible at math. Maybe some of you are really good at it. Some computer programmers are very good at math. I am not, but I can plug in a formula into Python, and it does the math for me, as long as I got the formula right. So let's just do the first thing we're going to do here is we're going to find the area. I'm just going to knock this down a little bit. This is going to be area of a square. Super simple. It's a number squared. So we want to know the length of one side, right? So we had a side 1 equals input. So what does this do? It still allows the user to enter a number. It then stores it in the variable called side 1. I'm going to take that variable, side 1, and we are going to square it. To square a number in Python, you do 2 of the multiplication symbols, and then whatever to the power of. So what this is saying right here is side 1 to the power of 2. So it's squared. If you don't want to do that, there's nothing wrong with doing side 1 times side 1. Of course, if you're doing the power of 10, then you got to go side 1, side 1. Side 1, probably best to remember this. But the 2 multiplication signs should square the number. So we have to do this, the area equals, we'll assign that, this value to this thing here, and then we will print the area of your square is, and I always do this, I mean, you can do it however you want, but I always put a semicolon for then the result, and you have to leave a space here for the next thingy. Put a comma, just type area. So area is a variable. It will be an int, unless you use an odd number and becomes a float, but it will be an integer, not a string, but it still should print it here. Let's see what happens. Enter number, we'll say 5. And we get an error. Well, that didn't work. Ah, okay. So why didn't this work? And I like doing this. I mess up a lot, but hopefully my errors will help you in some weird way. So we told it to enter side 1. What is this accepting it as? This is probably accepting it as a string. So even though I typed in the number 5, if you remember last week, I showed you the difference between a string and an integer. So even though I typed in the number 5, Python says it's probably a string. So it's telling me it can't do a string to the power 2. That makes no sense. So we can do a couple of things here. We can allow it to be taken in as a string, and then do int side 1 to the power 2, and this should work. Let's see. We enter 5. Yeah, okay. So now it sees it as an integer rather than a string. And you'll probably get these errors a lot, and now hopefully you'll be able to figure these out, what the areas are. But this did it correctly. The other option is to put this int up here. If you know you're going to need an integer, we want to do int up here, int input. Actually, you got double parentheses. So in this way, we know we're accepting it as an integer, and Python knows that we want an integer, and it'll take it in that way. If we run it, 5 and 25. So as long as we're changing that string or making sure that Python understands that variable should be an integer and not a string, it'll work. And you can see here in the print statement, it will print the area, even though it's an integer. It knows how to print it as a string. If it didn't for some reason, we could just do str around the area, run that again, and it'll still print the same way. So now it's printing it as a string. There's a little extra space there, probably because of comma. If I think in that wrap up, it was kind of showing you concatenation. So why would we do it like this? So instead of using this comma, we want to concatenate the string and plus instead. You can then run this 5. There you go. So now it sees it as a string. We converted from an int to a string to an int, and just, yeah, it gets a little confusing. But ultimately, if your output looks like this, it doesn't matter what your code looks like. And that is something that's really great about programming in general. There are some rules and some best practices, especially when you're working on a team with a lot of other folks. But if you're writing your own stuff, you can write it in any way that makes sense to you, so long as it works. And we'll cover that actually in one of your labs, because it's a little brain bender, and I'll go over that. But that is input and string little formulas. What else could we? What is radius of a circle? No, not doing that. Trying to keep it simple. I guess this is good enough. Let's see. Addition and subtraction, we covered that, int and string. So 2.6.1.9. We'll go to the labs here. This lab shouldn't be too hard. You're going to put a float value for area B. So what it's going to want you to do here is A equals 5, and they want a float value, so maybe 5.0. Keep it simple. And then another float B equals 2.5. And then you're just going to do A plus B, and you got to give it a name. So you're going to assign the variables. Add is going to equal A plus B, so on and so forth. And then you're going to print out for each one of these addition equals and this will run that, and you'll see the addition equals 7.5. You should have subtraction, multiplication, and division in your lab as well. That's super simple. Y'all can do that. Although I haven't looked at your homework for last week yet, because I am in the future right now. I'm pretty sure you guys will all figure that out. The one I did want to cover is kind of, it's going to be a brain bender. So this one here, oh shoot, you can't see my whole screen. I hope you can see that last one. You couldn't see the console. Let me move that up and move this over. And one more time, your A is gonna, your A equals 5.0 because they set a float value. B equals 0.5. They want the result of the addition. So I'm going to call the variable add, and it's going to be A plus B. And then down here, I'm going to print addition equals, I'm going to concatenate here and make it a string, make my variable a string, and then run that. It says addition equals 7.5. And then you just do one for subtraction, multiplication, division. Super easy. On to lab 2.6.1.1.11 point thingy. It's ridiculous. So this one wants, this is a duration thing. You're going to calculate duration here. They give you that there's are 3 variables here at the top: hour, minutes, and dura, or duration. They've already done the int input for you, so the computer's going to take in an integer, and it's going to ask the user for starting hours, starting minutes, and the event duration. So if you look at some of the test data they have at the side here, you're going to put in it's the 12th hour, 17th minute, so it's 12:17 in the afternoon, and the event will last 59 minutes. And your code written here will have to output that the event will end at 1:16 or 13:16 military time. They give you this little hint here and says, test your code carefully. Hint, using the modulus operator may be key to success. So I touched on the modulus. I'm not sure if anybody really understood it. Without understanding modulus, you could probably do it, but I'm sure there's a way, but modulus makes it easier. So the first time I did this, I created a couple of variables. Minutes in hours. And what my thought process here was to convert everything into seconds and then kind of divide it out and figure out what time it would be. Not sure. A lot of the times that you deal with, so I've been doing computer forensics for a long time, and most of the time stamps you get aren't like 12:17. There'll be a large number. And Apple likes to do the time from the epoch, which is, several milliseconds, and you have to convert these times, and they're in big Indian and little Indian, and just ridiculous. So I'm used to converting everything into seconds. So that's what my brain did when I did this time, the first time. So I did minutes and hours plus minutes plus the mins that were entered plus the duration. And then again, I multiplied it by 60, trying to get it in seconds. And then I divided by, or did the modulus, 24 for days, times the times button 3600, and I don't I don't understand. I don't remember what this represented, honestly. So this is my thought process, and then I had to find the... So I got the event in seconds, and then I had to find the end hour. And I did a double divide here. This double divide, let's say we're going to get a float, like 1.2, 1.3, whatever. If you do the double division, it will give you just the 1 and nothing after the period. And again, this modulus. So I need you to understand the modulus. Let's say you're going to divide 7 by 3. 3 goes into 7 twice. So the little 2 goes at the top. And that makes 6. So 7 minus 6 is 1. The remainder of 1. Modulus returns that 1. Not the 2, but the 1. The remainder. So I'm trying to find the end minutes and the end hours here. And then I convert it to strings. And hour plus the colon and then the end minutes. M-I-N-U-T-E. All right, and if I run this and I put in the test data over here on the side, 12, 17, and 59, I get an error. Awesome. Where's my error? Hours is not defined. Oh, it's because it's hour. So if you get an error and it says hours is not defined or something is not defined, look back, make sure you spell your variables correctly. Run it again. Now let me clear this and pull it up a little higher so you guys can see it there. Where my face went. Guess it's not important. Sorry. So run this again. User test data 12, 17, and 59. And we get the expected output, 13, 16. If we use the next, you can't see it, but the next sample data is 23, 58, and 642. So 23, oh, I gotta run it again. Clear the screen, run it again. 23, 58, and the duration of 642. Is that minutes? I guess it is. But that's the test data. It's over here on the side, and you'll see it when you get to your lab. I think I hit a button and messed something up. Of course it did. 23, 58, 642, enter, I get 1040. So if we start, and then this is going to be in military time, apparently. All the test data is in military time, which makes it easier. Quite honestly, there's 24 hours in a day, and each one of those is represented by the number 1 through 24. So the test data for your the second test data is 2358 with a 642 duration, and the expected output is 1040. So my code works, but it's pretty convoluted, right? It's this is crazy, making everything down to minutes and seconds, and it makes sense in your head. It made sense in my head at the time. Then it works. Then it's not wrong. It's right. You get to 100. There's an easier way to do that. So if the minutes, we make that it's going to be equal to the minutes, mins, and the duration. And then we take the hour. It's going to be hour equal to the hour plus the minutes, mins, and then we're going to do the double divide again, divided by 60. I guess I'm kind of doing the same thing here. You're changing the numbers around, but if you calculate them out, it's the same thing. And all we need to do is print the hour modulus 24, and then print the semicolon and the mins modulus 60. So if you really understand what modulus is doing, this is the way you would do it. And let's clear this, scoot this over a little more. So if I run this, I get an error because I did something wrong. Mins, is it not mins? Oh, yeah. I forgot the comma after the colon. So run that again. Hours, 12. 17 for the minutes, and duration's 59. And we get a trace back. Come on now. Oh, so I still have this line here. Let me clear this up. I'm going to do this one more time. $12, $17, $59, $13, $16. There we go. And if you don't like these spaces here, because we're using colons, there's a couple things. If you remember the separator, we can do just that and leave it blank, so there's no separation. And if we run that again, 12, 17, 59, 13, 16 moves it together. Or what we can do is convert these to strings and concatenate. Sometimes, I'm not sure why, but sometimes I just prefer to concatenate stuff instead of using these commas, because it is much easier to format my output when I just concatenate. I know exactly what it's going to do, and I don't have to guess. But if I do this one more time. $13, $16, no space. Do it however you want to. I just showed you two different ways. Again, this isn't a math class, so it's kind of hurt my brain. Is it a good way to learn what modulus is? Yes. If you don't understand it, look up a video on that specific thing, just so you understand what it does. I can't recall ever really using it much, but that's going to really depend on your program. So that's that for the lesson. Now I want to cover what your assignments are going to look like in PyCharm. So your miles per gallon and so there's my pretty face again. Your miles per gallon and your total purchases are both going to be done in PyCharm. So what you need to do is, well, do your homework. So this is going to be MPG program. And what are the instructions? I usually put fairly detailed instructions on there. So you're going to create a Python program or script that will take input from a user. So we just learned how to do that. The user should be asked for the number of miles driven and the number of gallons used to travel that distance. You will then calculate the miles per gallon based on that information and supply that to the user. Super simple. So the first thing you want to do is write what? Input, int, very nice to our users. Please enter the miles driven. And we're going to have to store that in a variable, right? So miles is apt. Miles is going to equal the input the miles driven. And then gallons should equal the input of the, please enter the number of gallons used. Gallons of what? I don't know. They could run their car on fish oil, but their fish oil will have a miles per gallon total. And then we want to have a MPG variable. I'll let you figure that out. It's super easy. I'm just going to say 5. I'm gonna make mine a string. I can't do all your homework. So here, where you've got miles per gallon, you're gonna figure out miles per gallon. It's division. It's super easy. Then you're gonna take that and you're gonna print a very nice sentence. The miles per gallon for this trip is, and then you can either concatenate or use a comma and convert it to a string or whatever you need to do. That's the easy part. What you then need to do is go to File and Save As, and to give it a name, I think I specify that I like your assignment's last name, your last name, not mine, and not the word last name. Trust me, I'm saying this because people do it. Your last name _ miles per gallon, and it will be a PY file. If you've never seen one before, this is just to let you know. Make sure you know where it's being saved. Hit OK, and that PY file is what you will upload into Moodle. And then I'll then open it up, throw it in here, look and see what you did. I can read your code. So that is how to submit a an assignment in Moodle. Again, I haven't looked at your assignments from last week because I'm in the future. But when you do your screenshots for your labs, make sure that it is, I have as much of this as I can get in your screenshot if it becomes longer. But I want to see what you're supposed to do. I want to see your code, and I want to see the console output in your screenshots. And I wasn't looking up, so I hope you could read what I wrote here earlier for the miles per gallon thing. But anyway, if you have any questions, send me an email. I'm happy to help out. Again, I think this stuff is pretty easy so far, but if you're having